in Anypoint platform. So if we have to think about it, so giving another example, so few years back, so if we have a system or an enterprise having a small set of APIs, that enterprise would have grown and had, if we look at it now, they would have a very large scale application network which consists of a lot of APIs. So in order to manage and in order to provide more management capability, governance, security on top of it. So universal API management, it's not a single product, it's a group of or a collection of different capabilities available on the Anypoint platform, which solves some of your problems related to design, related to governance, related to security, and management, of course. So so how do we have, so it helps us in accelerating application delivery. So developers who want to create their APIs or who are already creating APIs in different landscape now would have a common platform in order to collaborate with their findings or their own APIs. So different project team do not have to work in silos, rather they have a common platform to collaborate. When it comes to API owners, so who are building modern architecture, so there can be different, let's take into account different architectural patterns. So a certain team could use a certain architectural pattern like EDA, certain team could use an architectural pattern like API-led connectivity, some can use message-based, some can use REST-based, some can use synchronous, asynchronous, you name it. In any different kind of patterns, and it also depends on where we are hosting our services. So each hosted environment might differ. Like we can host our services or APIs in on-prem, in cloud, in different VMs, or in containerized environment. So implementing the modern architectures for these APIs in these kind of environment becomes essential. And universal API management is here to solve that problem or provide that opportunity for building your modern architectures. Um, for architects, so gaining consistent security and quality. So because it provides an opportunity of a single platform where you can manage and design and deploy different sets of APIs operating in different landscapes and architectures. You can there is opportunity to even govern them in terms of best practices, not having siloed best practices, but you can have a single set of best practices implemented throughout different architectures, throughout different platforms within the enterprise. So if we look at the offerings, so these are the offerings in terms of the whole MuleSoft's universal API management umbrella. We have, in terms of design and application delivery, we provide, there is API Design Center, which is an already existing product that has been updated with the universal API management offering. There is a new product, which is Anypoint Platform CLI. So the Anypoint Platform CLI has now been updated with a new product called as API Catalog CLI, which we'll be talking about it in today's meetup. This CLI enables you not just to operate on Mule APIs, but also to how to catalog non-Mule APIs on a single. Okay. Then we have Flex Gateway, which is the ultra-fast gateway. We'll talk about it in a minute. We have, in order to ensure governance and security, we have API governance, where you define different governance and governance profiles. You have API Manager, where you can apply different policies, SLAs, generate alerts in terms of API management. Then finally, when we want to provide a good connected experience, we have Anypoint Exchange, which provides a catalog of the APIs for your enterprise. We have API Community Manager, which is a product based on Salesforce connected to the platform, which generates a community for you to engage with third parties, customers, your own business verticals about the APIs which are provided by your organization. And we will be having a new product sometime this year, which will be called as API Experience Hub. which will be the new exchange portal or the new portal for API cataloging. So these would be some of the products, or which are some of the products as part of the universal API management umbrella. Okay, so moving on to the first one. So we are going to discuss three topics today. We are going to discuss about API Anypoint Catalog CLI or API Catalog CLI. Then we are going to talk about Flex Gateway, and finally on API governance. So these are the three new products which have been released under the API management umbrella. Right. So what is API Catalog CLI? Um, because most of us are already should already be familiar with Anypoint Exchange, which is the platform or the marketplace for APIs, where you catalog your APIs and define your APIs for higher visibility, discovery, and reuse. Now, when we are talking about APIs in the enterprise, we are not talking about just a Mule API, but we are talking about APIs which can exist in different ecosystems uh, in the enterprise, and we now want to use the Anypoint platform for management. So the Anypoint API Catalog CLI, it provides you an opportunity to drive API cataloging through automation. Okay, so it might become a tedious process. So say, for example, we have a microservices architecture already existing, and we want to catalog those APIs, or we want to manage those APIs. Uh, Within that landscape, if let's say there are 50 or 100 APIs, it becomes a tedious task to take each of them and upload into Exchange, okay, for discovery, or you can upload into Community Manager for discovery. Be, so whichever might be the case, automate you. So Anypoint Catalog CLI, it provides a set of packages based on top of Node.js, and it would provide you a set of command lines which will help you not just to catalog your API behavior, but also your API documentation as well. Okay, you can integrate this to your CI/CD, existing CI/CD pipelines, or CI/CD or DevOps landscapes. You would not need to individual upload each API. So you can do it as a group operation of cataloging any number of APIs in through a single command. Okay, we'll see that in the demo as well, where I will show you how to catalog it in a high level demo. Right. So API cataloging, it's provided in two different stages. So if let's say you are a developer, you still want to test how this cataloging works, you can. So it's available in our public documentation as well. So it's just a 3 or 4 step process. You just need to install API cataloging CLI. It's a package available which can be downloaded with npm. Um, then you need to mention which APIs you would like to catalog, and finally, just need to publish those APIs in the catalog with one command. So it's basically just 3 commands that you need to run in order to catalog uh, any number of APIs that you want. Okay. Uh, in terms of having these APIs automated, the cataloging automated through CI/CD, this cataloging can also be the CLI can be also be included in your existing CD pipelines. You do not need to create any new ones. You can use your existing CD pipelines, create a new stage for API cataloging, and it would just scan all the APIs present in that environment or in that landscape where this continuous deployment operates, and then catalog those APIs automatically to Exchange. Okay. Right. So this is about API cataloging. We will be having a demo in a short while, but I'll be explaining the other topics as well, and then we start with the demos. Okay. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions related to any of these topics, please feel free to post it in the channel. Okay. Right. Moving on to the next product, which is Anypoint Flex Gateway. So let's talk about what the Flex Gateway is. So it's a ultra fast gateway which is built in the motive that it can be deployed in any deployment as any deployable model, okay, in any deployable environment. That environment could be on-prem, that on environment could be cloud. It can be a physical or physical machine or a VM. It can be a containerized, or it can run on a non-containerized environment. So it provides you all the flexibility to manage your API by and can be installed in any of these infrastructures. What it provides, it links to, or it is embedded with it is provided in two different modes. I'll talk about it, but it provides you an opportunity to manage and secure your APIs by using your MuleSoft's API management policies on different categories like security, compliance, quality of service, and so on. Uh, you would also can define you can it provide, if you're managing it with the Anypoint platform, you can use the Anypoint platform for for creating different gateways based on your needs. So if you have a need to have your gateway installed as nearer to the system, as we always want to build an architecture where the gateway or the service is as much as possible near to the runtime, you can have it deployed in any scale. So if your runtimes are existing in VMs, you can install this as a gateway instance in the VM. If your APIs and services are existing in a Kubernetes based infrastructure, you can have it installed in a Kubernetes based as a Kubernetes ingress controller or sidecar. uh, Furthermore, there is also this is also connected with different monitoring aspects. So you can use the Anypoint monitoring to monitor the logs available from each of your gateways being managed on the platform, or you can choose to have forward those monitoring to use an external tooling for the monitoring and analytics. And finally, you can so this works in terms of an action-based pricing model. So you pay for what you use based on the API usage, and not based on any core like we have in terms of runtimes. Okay, so this is a brief introduction about Flex Gateway. Now let's look at what are the different gateways that are offered by MuleSoft. So I think everyone, each of us who is already working in a MuleSoft based environment or MuleSoft integrations is already aware of the MuleSoft gateway, which comes with different Mule runtimes like Cloud Hub, Runtime Fabric, and Standalone. Um, we also have Anypoint for Service Mesh, which is an existing product. It is based on the concept of where it relies on an Istio-based infrastructure in a containerized Kubernetes based infrastructure for managing where your services are being hosted, and the communication between and it manages the communication between different APIs based on the not by maintaining the east-west traffic and managing this with the Anypoint platform based on a Mule adapter. Okay, so this is based on the Istio based kind of Istio based environment. Now Flex Gateway, on the other hand, like we discussed, so this can be installed anywhere. This can be installed on VM. This can be installed on as a Docker container. This can be installed as a ingress controller or a sidecar in Kubernetes. So this is so it provides you more flexibility in terms of installation and in terms of management. Right. So talking about where do we run the Flex Gateway and what are the different modes? So we keep hearing about different modes which are available in Flex Gateway. So let's talk about those first. So first of all, there are two modes the Flex Gateway is available in. One is a connected mode, one is local mode. Connected mode is connected means that your Flex Gateway instance or that installation is connected with the Anypoint platform. Okay, and it is being managed in the Anypoint platform. So when you are deploying a Flex Gateway or when you are installing a Flex Gateway which is running in connected mode, you should be able to apply and manage your policies, define SLAs and alerts, everything in the single platform on the Anypoint platform. The local mode, on the other hand, works on a declarative configuration set. So In this mode, when you have local mode installed, so you would be having Flex Gateway installed and connected to the platform, but just for metrics. All the configuration related to policies, related to SLAs and alerts.
Chimoy, can you hear me, please? Chimoy, if you can hear me, we lost you. We lost audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Just give me a second, Igor. I'll be back. I just need to turn the microphone on. Just give me a second.
All right.
Okay, am I audible now, Igor?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so and the volume is okay. Sorry for the trouble. Okay, so let's continue. Right. So I'm just going to start off with the connected mode and local mode again because I'm not aware where we. Okay. Just give me a second. Let me share the screen again. Okay. So we were talking about the different modes. So connected mode and local mode. Just to do a quick recap. So connected mode, you would have your APIs managed in the Anypoint platform in the API manager, or you can use have different configurations and the configuration changes using API manager, platform API, or just do it manually using the UI. In the local mode, the gateway is mostly disconnected from any point control plane, and you would be able to define those configurations through YAML configurations and integrate with your CI/CD pipeline. Okay, right now. Let's talk about the different deployment patterns which would be available, or the different deployment models which would be available. So like I said, it's currently available in can be installed in three different ways. So it can be installed as a Linux service, it can be installed as a Docker container, or basically, and it can be installed in a Kubernetes environment in two different modes. You can run the Flex Gateway as a Kubernetes ingress controller, or you can run it as a Kubernetes container sidecar. Okay, so these deployment models are available. So these are the deployment models which are currently available. So you can choose any deployment model you want for different architectures or designs which are available for your API landscape. So you might have one API landscape which is running in a Kubernetes infrastructure. You can install the service as running as a ingress controller. Yeah, this you can even combine it with the container sidecar if you still need to manage the east-west traffic between different pods, between the services hosted within different pods, acting on different containers. If you are working on a non-containerized environment like a VM, you can just deploy the gateway as a single gateway instance on a VM, and which would be acting on top of your APIs, um, and and connecting to your APIs by having different API instances and routing patterns. Okay. So yeah, so just to summarize, on the Flex Gateway front, it's a ultra-fast gateway, can be installed anywhere, available in two different modes, and can be installed or can be run in different deployment models like containerized, non-containerized models. Okay, right. And Igor, if you're listening, you can feel free to add anything if you'd like to in between. Okay, right. Okay. API governance. Um, right. So this is the third topic which we wanted to cover today. Um, Now, when we talked about API adoption, we are currently moving uh, towards a stage where API adoption uh, is so rapidly increasing that the management and governance needs to be established. Because if we do not enforce governance at this moment with the management possibilities, if we do not enforce governance with the management possibilities, then we lose the track of the whole API management. So with the API, so what is the Anypoint API governance? So it provides you with a set of rule sets or validation rules which you can apply, not just for any existing API. You can even create your API based on the same rule sets. So it works on the same principle when you have siloed infrastructure. So in order to bring it into a centralized infrastructure for API management, when you want different teams to work on the same API management principle or API governance principle, be it in terms of security for having different set of authentication, be it different your quality of service, like having different SLAs for rate limits, and creating your business models based on action-based pricing. The API governance provides you with that set of tools in order to govern your APIs, both during the start, during the inception, during design, or maintaining or looking at your current API landscape and improving on top of the landscape with proper governance. So um, you can include this you can enforce API governance on top of APIs by creating different quality profiles, different validation rule sets, integrated with automation with the CI/CD pipelines. You can even enforce it with your existing APIs, build a new set of governance strategy, and then move on improving your API adoption for API management. Right. Um, so yeah, so this is what we discussed. So we are moving towards a stage where we will have a lot of ungoverned APIs if we do not enforce governance on starting from the inception, starting from the first life cycle, that is the design stage, which there would be development overheads if we do not manage the behavior of an API, let's say. Okay. And we have continuously evolving standards, so we want to enforce these governance models not just based on the de facto standard now, but we also want to keep on improving and provide a compatibility for not just the APIs which will be built in which are already built, but also for the APIs which will be built in future. So what does this solve? What problem or what challenges does API governance solve for you? So in terms of a developer, the API governance provides you self-service and access rules in exchange. So so first of all, you would be able to visualize which APIs are conformant with the validation or the rule sets that you have created. You can also define different standards of API definition. So you can define standards based on your API design, based on API security, based on logging standards, headers, error patterns, monitoring aspects, and everything else. So you can define those standards, enforce it on all or most APIs or any APIs that you want. This for a developer, it also initiates the possibility that this can also be enforced through the CI/CD. Not necessarily everything can be done manually, and it provides different rules based on different open standards, and there will be more tool sets which will be coming in based on different standards as well. So I'll show you in a minute what rule sets are currently available, and these rule sets can then you can customize this rule set based on your need or your enterprise or the need of your enterprise based on your current infrastructure or architecture. Now this is how it helps the developers. Now what challenges did it solve for, or is it going to solve for the security team? Because as I said, when it comes to API management, security and governance is one of the primary concerns. So for the security, because we are enforcing a governance model, it enforces consistency, it enforces security. You can enforce different security profiles or different security models on top of any APIs. Uh, it provides you monitoring capabilities, like it can define what the different violations, what are the different violations for a certain API or a certain group of APIs. It can also give you a view of who you want to notify in case of critical violations. You do get notified and get monitored in terms of in through your SDLC lifecycle. So you can start with the feedback, simulate, validate model, starting from design. And then when you are going to a release or a productionized environment, you have your governance enforced already with a clean architecture or a clean design for your API. So that's what governance provides for security teams, or solves the challenges in terms of security. Yeah. So that was mostly on the content of the three components. So now I'd just like to take a pause and provide Igor a chance to speak about any of these components, provide some extra knowledge about it. So Igor, anything, do you have anything to add? And the stage is yours.
Oh, thanks, Chinmoy. So I think the demo and some hands-on experience are really important here. But some things to realize are that the API governance comes with, I believe it's 10 APIs which you can govern with it. So please do not expect, because I've had experience in the past, people expect that basically it's like full scale, everything that's in exchange. It's not the case. There are some limitations, so you need to be mindful of the license. The governance as such is nicely integrated with other components, right? So it's exchanged to design center. In the design center, you can actually get this live feedback as you are designing your spec or building your spec. You get a constant feedback back, like be mindful, this is not compliant, that is not compliant. So you get that feedback even before publishing, which is obviously saving a lot of time. So yeah, that's from the tooling perspective. But what's also important to realize is that universal API management is a concept, right? And that concept is supported by all these different features we we've just seen. However, as a concept, it also has a certain methodology and processes behind, right, which we need to think about. So with API governance, for example, who's going to be the owner of the rules? Uh, uh, um, who is going to be enforcing these rules? Who is going to be keeping an eye on the APIs, right? How we'll set up a reporting against that, etc., etc. How does that impact our deployment processes? Would we actually stop APIs from being deployed when they are not compliant, or would we just send some warning somewhere, right? So there are all these things which we need to consider as we go through the universal API management concept. Um, Also, one last thing to mention with this regard, and then I hand it over back to Chinmay. Uh, many people and many organizations are used to have an internal team that is building APIs. More mature organizations have a team that not only builds APIs, but also enables the rest of the organization to build APIs. With universal API management, we need to come up with a similar concept, but that concept is related to API management, right? So we need to find a way and processes how you engage with your API owners, how you motivate them to invest into onboarding the APIs under the management, and make sure that for anyone this is a smooth process, right? So these are the things to think about um, when we talk about universal API management, apart from obviously how it's technically supported, how I can do API install Flex Gateway, or how the API Manager UI looks like, and how do I apply policies in a local or disconnected mode of Flex Gateway. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on these new features, but also think about bigger picture. That's what I would highlight.
Okay, thanks, Igor. Okay, so I think then we can see to demo. So right. So we are. I hope everyone can hear me. Okay. So we'll be going through a demo journey. So we'll be validating, or we'll be looking at all of the three different components in the API Catalog CLI, Flex Gateway, and the API governance. So to start with, so I'm going to use my Anypoint platform. So let me just do a refresh to check if I'm still logged in. Okay, I'll just log in a minute. Right. So start with first one, which is about the catalog and you Anypoint CLI. So I'm going through a set of steps. So before I show that, so the idea is, let's consider that you have a set of APIs in a certain or a API architecture in a certain landscape. Now, you want to catalog those APIs in one shot. You do not want to do it manually, API by API, and you want to catalog them every API in one shot. So it's a very simple process, and I'm going to show you how to do it in a local mode. I'm using my local machine in order to do that, and I'll be showing you how simple it is and what are how easy those steps are. So I've created a catalog of it. So the first step, so it's just like 3 or 4 step process. So the first step is to install the first you need to install the Node.js in your system, and then you need to install the API Catalog CLI. So it's available also in the public documentation. I've simplified it by adding those configurations in my machine. So the first step is to install the API Catalog CLI. Now, because I've already installed, I'm not going to do this again. Right. The second step is to set the Anypoint platform configuration. Now, because you are up, um, going to catalog your CLIs, catalog your APIs using the CLI in Exchange. So let me just show you. So currently, this is how my Exchange looks like. Okay. And let's say I'm in the demo organization. And in the demo organization, there are a set of APIs already available. Now let's consider a case which I have built right now. And let's consider universal API management. And in API cataloging, right? So let's say I have 3 APIs: retail fulfillment, retail inventory, and retail location. So these are, let's say, my APIs existing in a certain landscape. And I want to use this CLI in or for a CLI to catalog these APIs in one shot. So how do I do that? So it's pretty simple. You can, let me just clear my window. Right. So it's pretty simple. You just need to follow a 3-step process. So once you have set up your Anypoint platform configuration, so your configuration needs to be based on the organization where you want to publish these APIs. So let's say I'm current organization. So my organization ID is this. And if I want to publish it with a certain, let's say, client ID secret, you can use a username or password for an individual user in order to publish it as well. You can make this configuration. So there are 2 ways to configure the Anypoint platform setup. Either you can use the API catalog conf, which is a type of which is a set one set of parameters for configuration. You can define these, or you can just create environment variables, which is the most simplest way. So it just creates the environment variables for you and defines these values based on the environment variables. Now, currently, this is all being set up in my system, so I can more basically show you the same. Okay, so this is where my API cataloging configuration has been created. So I'm just going to execute the same and show it to you. So currently, this is my whole setup. It has the organization and all of the details where I want to update my configuration. Okay, right. So let's go to the next one. So what do we want to do now? So we install the CLI. We have configured the platform. Now let's go and just just catalog our API. So the first step is to create a catalog descriptor. So what is a descriptor? So a descriptor creates is basically a catalog of your APIs based on the format of APIs that it finds in the specific folder or the directory where your APIs are available. So for me, the APIs were available in this folder, API cataloging. So if I just run this command here, create descriptor. So it creates a catalog descriptor for me by analyzing all the 3 folders and analyzing what are the different APIs which are available and based on the RAML files which are available for each of them. Okay, so there is fulfillment, inventory, and location. Now, if I go back to my folder again, I should be able to see the catalog .yaml, which consists of this exact configuration. Now you can update. So if you want to start afresh, let's say you want to start with changing the version or changing the name or anything else, you can update this catalog descriptor as well. So there is the CLI available for that. Now, once you have so let's say you have gone with the update. It's very important to check if the syntax of your YAML is correct. So you can use this command, which is called as dry run, to validate that your catalog.yaml is, or your descriptor file is syntactically correct. Okay. Right. So if there is something missing or has a different syntax, it will show you the details about it. Now, if everything is right, I just need to publish my API using this command, which is API catalog publish asset. Okay. So I just click on paste, enter, and then it starts to gather the details from the catalog.yaml, and you can see that it's starting to publish the retail order fulfillment process API to Exchange. Okay, so it'll take a bit like a few minutes to publish it, but I think if we go back to Exchange and I refresh it, I should be able to see one of the first APIs shortly. Yeah, so I'm able to see my fulfillment process API. And if I click on it, I can see all the details of the orders, the different request responses, and the body as it was defined in the RAML itself. Okay, and if we go back, I guess, and do a refresh, there would be other APIs coming up and visible shortly here as well. Okay, so as you can see, it has already successfully published the retail order fulfillment process API. Now it's trying to do the retail inventory system API. So this is how it helps you with cataloging all the APIs in one shot. So just think about a system where your APIs are already existing. You just need 3 different commands, one to set up with the platform, and one to create a descriptor file, and the third command to just publish. So it's just 3 commands that you need to integrate either in your CI/CD pipeline, or you can do it directly on that infrastructure itself. And it publishes all your APIs in one shot along with their documentation. Okay. Okay, so all of the 3 APIs are now published successfully. So if I just do a refresh, I can see all the APIs: retail locations, retail inventory, and retail order. Okay, so that was the first demo, which was about API Catalog CLI. Now let's go to the next component. Just to explain, just a bit more information before we move on to the next. So this is just a basic setup. So as we said, we will be having a deep dive into each of these topics in one of our future meetups, where we explain different other aspects of it. We can also show you want to update the catalog, how you do it, how do you integrate with your CI/CD pipeline. We will be covering that sometime in one of our future meetups. Okay. In terms of documentation, all of these documentation and this command. So I'll be providing these commands in the slide deck, which will be available in the event page after the meetup. But if you want to validate where these commands are available, it's just available in our public portal. You can see it's under Exchange and auto catalog APIs using catalog CLI. And you can visualize various type of commands like conf for configuration, create and update descriptor, and publishing asset. Okay. Right. So let's go to the next topic, which is Flex Gateway. So let me go to the runtime manager. Right. So if you go to your runtime manager, and you would be able to see gateways where you can add your Flex gateway. So I had created some other gateways which are currently in disconnected state. So this is the gateway that we are going to use today. But I'm going to show you the different deployment steps as well, different installation steps as well. So as we previously saw in the slides, you have 3 different possibilities. So you can use it in a Linux, can install it in a Linux-based environment, or as a Docker container, use a Docker container, or in a Kubernetes environment as an ingress controller, or you can define a sidecar. So all the possibilities are available. Now, for this meetup, we'll be choosing the Docker container for the installation. So every Flex Gateway installation. So we'll be talking about it in two steps. So first we'll be talking about installation and registry, then we'll be talking about the API management. So the installation includes, or the setup includes three different steps. So first, you would like to install the Flex Gateway. Just download the gateway using this Docker command. Then you need to register it with the Flex Gateway into the Anypoint platform using Docker. Now, this is a pretty simple command. So it provides the registration principles where you define the gateway name. This already generates a token for you based on your organization and based on your login. It also defines which organization, what's the organization ID where you want to install your Flex Gateway. Okay. This is an important parameter which defines whether you're going with a connected mode or a local mode. So in this case, as it is enabled as connect, we will be managing the APIs and the gateway in the Anypoint platform. Okay, right. So let's start with that. So I've already installed the gateway, but I can just show you, make another registry for a different gateway. I've just named it as 005 because I currently because I do not have 005. I will also change the token because my token has changed already. Okay, and then I can use this command. I'll be using a yes. Okay, so I'll be using another folder for it. In that folder, I had already installed tried to install two different gateways and try to get those configuration files. But let me explain that to you again. So if we just have to copy the commands as available, you only need to provide your gateway name, which is Flex Gateway Docker Demo 005 for this case, and paste it, click on enter, and then it starts the registration. So what does registration mean? So registration means it's registering with the Anypoint platform, registering the gateway with the Anypoint platform. But it doesn't mean that it has already started. Okay. If we go back to this folder, we can now see that there were okay. So these were the files which have been recently created. So these are the configuration and the secret keys which have been created for enabling or starting the gateway. Now, I'm not going to run this again and create another gateway, but what I can show you is the next command that we use in order to start our gateway is this, which is docker run, where you define your absolute path of your conf file, which has been created. So for me, it's the demo folder. You define a port where your gateway would be listening to. You would also define the unique ID of the conf files which were created. So once you have all these three attributes defined, you just need to run it and your API will be available here. Okay, so you have 003. So the previous API which we created, as you can see, it's currently in disconnected state because I'm not enabling it. So for this demo, we'll be using 003. And as you can see, if I click replica available here. Now, what if I want another replica on this Flex Gateway? So it's pretty simple. You would just need to run the same kind of command. Only change would be you would need to define a replica name and a different port this replica would be listening to. Okay. So once I copy this, and just for your information, this is the UUID of the 003 Flex Gateway, which we are using for the demo. And once I just paste it, okay, as you can see, it's starting off the gateway. Okay, and now on the background, you are able to see that the Flex gateway now has two different replicas. One replica listening on 8081 port and the other replica listening on 8082. Okay, so this is how you configure or install your Flex gateway and manage your different replicas for the Flex gateway. Now the first part is done. You created the gateway and the gateway is now available to for your APIs to be managed. Now let's go to the next part, which is the management part of it. Okay, so I'm going to create a new API. So add new API. As you can see, when you are trying to create an API, it gives you three different possibilities where you want to manage. There is the Flex gateway. You have the Mule gateway for management as well, where you have your Mule APIs deployed into different Mule runtimes. And you have the service mesh, which is for a Istio-based service mesh environment for running as a container sidecar. Now we are going to use Flex gateway. So I'm going to search for the 003. Okay, here it is. I click on this, then I click on next. So I've selected my gateway first. I want to create an API. So I'm going to use the simplest format. I'm going to use the simplest API. Maybe I'll just name it as Meetup API. Okay? And I'll select it as HTTP API. So once I click on next, okay. So while you're clicking this up, when I clicked on next, so this API has just been added as the HTTP API to Exchange, which I will just show you in a while. So which endpoint we are going to use? So we are going to use http-bin.org, which is just an endpoint which provides you the attributes as a response. We will be able to visualize what is the response when we call it directly or how we are managing the call. If considering, let's assume that this is one of our backend APIs, how we are going to manage it through the gateway. So, okay, this is the configuration. I'm just clicking on next and I click on save and deploy. Okay. So once you have this set up, you can see the API status becomes active. It shows the implementation URL. And there you start seeing different key metrics like policy violations, request errors, and response times, and so on. Okay. There is also this runtime endpoint configuration, which we made, which we can change. You can also change a different target for gateway if you want in a later point in time. Right. Now let's go a bit more further. Okay. And let's add a policy to it. Sorry, before that, let's try and call this API directly. So if we want to see an a demo how this thing works, so if I'm calling the HTTP bin org, I get a response back from with the headers based on the client where I'm calling from, and the trace ID and the origin and so on. Now, if I'm using the same endpoint, but I'm using, because I installed in my local machine, the Flex gateway running as a Docker container with 8081, I'm just going to call using my own host and port. And when I click on get, so there you might notice there is a slight difference with X envoy, expected request timeout, and origin path, and the other headers as well. So this actually defines that this actually means that it's running in your Flex gateway, which is based on envoy. Okay, right. Now I'm going to enforce some policy. Let's do some real API management now. So I'm going to enforce one of the simplest policies, which is client ID enforcement. I click on next, apply. Okay, so the enforcement has been applied. Now, if you, so you can see if you look at the gateway, you can see the policy is being applied in the background. Okay, So you can see that the policy, the API has been updated, and there is a new, before there was a new replica which has been added. There is a new policy which has been added, which is client ID enforcement policy, and so on. We're looking at Anypoint monitoring in a bit. So my policy has been added. Now I need to add a contract, for which I have to go to Exchange and request access for it. Right. So this is the API. As you can see, this API is a HTTP API, which has now been added to Exchange. I just need to request for access. I can use like a demo organization. Yeah. And click on request access. And there it gives me a set of client credentials. So when I'm requesting access, if I use my so it takes a few seconds to get enforced, but I've already taken the liberty to add the same client ID enforcement on top of it. Okay, so the same client ID enforcement which we had before, which I just created. So as you can see, I'm using the same client ID enforcement, but if I change something here, it would give me 401 authorized. So this is how you are managing your API. You're managing your API using the API gateway, but it's not like the enforcement of policy is the same policies which were available before, but it's available in with the enforcement of Flex Gateway, when your APIs are managed by the Flex Gateway. To show a bit more, we can also visualize this in the Anypoint monitoring. So if you have a Titanium license, so let's look at the logs first. So yeah, so here you can see if every log in the last 15 minutes, I've skipped the time frame as the last 15 minutes. You can see all the logs are based on the inputs which has been provided by me, and the enforcement of policies, the starting of the gateway, the creation of the new replicas. So all of these logs are available, and in one of our future meetups, we will also demonstrate how these logs can then be shipped to an external monitoring system if there is a need to do it. If we want to look at the analytics, we can look at this Meetup API, pick up the dev instance which we created, click on view. And we will be able to see the request and responses, because I need to add a few more requests maybe. Yep. Yeah, so in a few moments, this should already be available. If it's not available now, we can of course come back to it in a few moments. So yeah, so this is where you check your monitoring aspects and analytics. You can already find your client application for this Meetup API. And I had created another API as well, which is Meetup Sample API in the morning. I think we can also see the inputs here. Yep, same kind of client applications. And if let me provide a 3-hour or 4-hour window so we can see the request and responses and the failures and stuff. Yep. So as you can see, there is a set of requests and responses. Yeah, these were the failures. And these were the following requests. So this is how you can monitor and you can manage it. Okay. So yeah, so what did we see here? This concludes the Flex Gateway demonstration part. So we first tried to install the gateway. We tried to register the gateway so it's available in a connected mode in the Anypoint platform. Once we registered the gateway, it was then active and available for APIs to be deployed. We could add new replica to it, provided they have a different port when we're running as a Docker container. And post that, we try to create a HTTP API on top of http bin.org, and we're able to manage it with policies like client ID enforcement policy. And we finally check the logs and analytics of those APIs. Okay, so this was about Flex Gateway. Now the last part for the demo would be API governance, right? So let's check what API governance has to offer. So we do have a set of APIs now. So you need to go to the API governance tab. So as I said, so governance provides you a lot of validation profiles or rule sets. So maybe we can call it as Meetup rules. Move on to the next. So these are the default rule sets which have been provided by MuleSoft. So you can use these rule sets directly, or you also have the opportunity to update any of these rule sets. And so let's say you want to enforce Anypoint RESTful best practices. You can view in Exchange. So there is a link to it. We can have a look at it. So you can see what different best practices have been applied, what goes as violations and what goes as warnings. So for example, resource use lowercase is a violation, or camel case fields, or there are certain violations here available. You cannot have duplicated entry in the enum and so on. There are warnings, which is API must have a description. So you need to have a description, you need to have a documentation, otherwise your API would show some warnings. So these are some of the rule sets which are applicable. If you want, you can, when we go deep dive in one of our future meetups, we'll be showcasing how these rule sets can be updated. You can update any of these rule sets. You can even not enforce some of the rule sets if you do not like it, and how to use this rule set to the best possible way. So at the moment, I'm just going to, just for demonstration, I'm just going to choose Anypoint best practices, and let's use the HTTPS enforcement as well. So once you choose the rule sets, then it checks which kind of APIs do you want to add these rule sets to. So as I said, so that could be different. So Exchange provides the possibility of cataloging different kind of APIs. You can have REST API, SOAP API, STDP APIs, so async APIs as well. So based on different API types, you can define the validation criteria. For now, I'm keeping this as API type as RESTful APIs. Okay. Now, if I click on next, and you can see our inventory, location, and order fulfillment, all the three APIs which we added as part of the API cataloging CLI are available here. So once I go to the next screen, so it shows me the notification part. Now, this was one of the most important, along with the rule set, this also provides an important aspect in terms of security or notification or reporting to in terms of a security concern. So you can choose who would be the recipient of this email. So you can choose the API publisher, the person who published the API. It can also be an API contact, which is available when you have an API in Exchange. You can define who is the contact for a certain API. So for example, if I'm going to Meetup API, you can provide I can provide my name as the contact name and email address. And once you click on next, it um, just does the review of the enforcement of the rule set, API criteria, notification, and then you create that profile. So when once you create this profile, it gives you a monitoring aspect or a reporting aspect of what the profile is, how many APIs are conformant to that to the rule sets, how many APIs are not, and what is the severity. You can even drill down to the API level, which APIs are conformant, which APIs are not, and what is uh, if there are any if there is any API which has passed some parameters. So for example, we can see if we go to a retail location system API, it has violations in terms of Anypoint best practices. It has 22 violations. If you click on those violations, you can visualize what exactly those violations are. Okay, and you can then work on it. You can change the design, you can change the behavior of the API based on this. You can make the cosmetic changes in order to have these violations removed, if those are the governance models. If we go to certain other APIs, here you can see, because there was no HTTPS enforcement, it provides one violation. If we go to another API, let's go to demo system API, it says the HTTPS enforcement has passed, because we would have added a security scheme in terms of the demo API. So let me search for the demo uh, experience of the system API. So if I'm moving on to this and I open one of those endpoints, as you can see here, it has an enforcement in terms of client ID, client ID secret. So because I have this already enforced, it says that the HTTPS enforcement has already passed and my APIs are already enforced with, or the URL is already, or the API endpoint is already HTTPS defined. Okay, so yeah, so this is how you visualize it. Um, so the API owners or the API publishers will get some emails based on the non-conform conformant profiles of their APIs, and they can take action to it. This can also be integrated with certain mailboxes where you want to receive the non-compliance possibilities of your APIs as well. Okay. Right. So this is API governance. Now, if we go to one of some of our APIs, so let's check some of our APIs which are RESTful endpoints. So this is one of our RESTful APIs, and you can see it visualizes here that this asset is non-conformant, and it is non-conformant based on one rule set, which is Anypoint best practices. Okay, but the HTTPS enforcement has passed. Right. So this is for this could be for an existing API. You define the quality profile. Now, what about enforcing the governance from the beginning? So let's assume that I'm starting to work with an API or design an API called as Mute API. And I have created my own configuration using RAML, own my own specification, defined examples, defined different resources, and so on. Now, if I want to enforce the governance here, we can start it from the beginning of the API lifecycle. So I can choose which enforcement I want to, which rule sets I want to enforce, and I click on Add Dependencies. Okay, it takes a minute to add. And now in a few moments, it will start to show which sections in the API are non-conformant. So if I expand the project errors, it actually displays which line has, so let's say if I'm going to this space, line number 63, it explains provide identifiers or display name for the operation. So you need to provide identifier display name. If you are going to this body, it would define that you need to define some examples for this type. If I'm not providing any description, it will show another error. So this is how you can enforce for while you're building new APIs using Design Center. You can enforce that governance by applying those rule set from the design phase and not wait till the phase where you are into the SDLC lifecycle. Okay. So yeah, that was mostly it. So so in terms of governance, what did we do? We tried to create a governance profile. We visualized the validation and non-conformant APIs. We viewed the API best practice rule set. We'll be getting into it more in one of our upcoming meetups. And we validated the rules during the design phase. So this brings me to an end of my demonstration. So just to go back to the slides again. So we discussed now 3 different aspects of universal API management. So we went through the journey of cataloging the APIs wherever they are. okay, based on simple commands, 3 specific commands in order to catalog multiple APIs in one shot. We managed to create a gateway anywhere we want. We used simple steps in order to create a Flex gateway as a Docker container. We managed and secured one of our APIs by applying different policies on top of it. We were able to, and finally, we went to the enforcement of API governance by creating certain rule sets and visualizing those rule sets, visualizing non-conformant APIs, and finally we were able to see the enforce the governance on the APIs as well. So this brings me to an end of my presentation and my demo. So we would like to now talk about, so I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can start looking at the questions. So, okay, so we have an online and on-site audience as well. So let's see if there are any questions in the for the online audience. So you can use the channel, which is the Q&A channel in the chat tab, to post your questions. And then I'll take the questions from the on-site channel as well in just a minute. So any questions, anyone? I think some of the questions were answered before.
So maybe, Chinmoy, maybe meanwhile we can go over some questions which I answered here online, because I think there were to be highlighted. So there have been some questions around API governance and what it can do.
Okay. Yeah, I can go through the answered questions as well. So, okay. API governance. So we have a question from Muhammad, and the question is there any way to apply governance rule sets to any non-Mule APIs whose API specification are not available in Anypoint Exchange? So you would need to enforce, so API governance is enforced on APIs which would be cataloged in Exchange. Okay, so you would need to add those using, you can use the cataloging CLI to enforce it in an automated way, or you can do it manually, but the rule sets would be applied there. The next question.
Chinmay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There is there, because you can actually apply governance rules from the CLI as well, which means you don't need to have API spec in Exchange to leverage CLI, to leverage the governance rules and validate the specs.
Right. And Igor, is that available as part of the Anypoint cataloging CLI? Is it available as part of API Anypoint CLI itself?
Yeah, that's Anypoint CLI with the governance like a sub command. I just pasted the link as part of my answer in the chat here.
Awesome.
And that it is linked to our official documentation where people can learn how that's used.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that, Igor. Okay.
No worries.
Okay, the next question was, how can we create new governance rule sets? Can we create them using Anypoint Exchange UI? Igor, correct me if I'm wrong. So as of this release, there are 6 rule sets which are available. And these rule sets can be modified and enforced based on your enterprise standards. Creation of new rule sets, at the moment it's not recommended and it's not available, but might be available in future releases.
So Chinmoy, a small caveat to that as well. MuleSoft uses open source framework called AMF to create the rules, and you can create your own rules by using AMF framework or edit the existing rules. There are 2 things. The first one, MuleSoft kindly asks you to submit the idea, if or before you are creating new rules or updating existing rules, simply because we want to have everything that is meaningful supported out of the box. We don't want people to be to rely on custom implementation. Another thing is that AMF is open source, which means if you make a mistakes in that implementation or something doesn't work, you uh, can't raise a support ticket with MuleSoft, or if you would raise it, our support team would kind of decline it because it's not supported by us. It's an open source community behind, so you need to talk to the open source community directly if you have challenges with that.
Right. So there won't be any MuleSoft support on that possibility, but they can. I mean, users can still do it using the open source tooling. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. The third question: how to enforce governance within DevOps to define rules in the CI/CD pipeline. So we'll be covering on the enforcement part of this rule, but once you define the API governance, you can either have this governance profile defined the CI/CD pipeline, or if it is a existing API governance profile already created, so the APIs which are filtered for that API governance are already governed in the Anypoint platform. So yes, if the question is about enforcing governance profiles or creating governance profiles and rule sets using DevOps, we might be covering that in one of our future meetups. Okay. Were there any other questions?
There is
Okay.
one new question. Oh, hang on, it disappeared.
Yeah, it
It disappeared.
disappeared.
Okay. It was moved to Q&A section. Okay, there it is.
Okay. If we are going to
Is it?
have policies, yes, it's there in the questions. Are you able to visualize that, Igor? Okay. So the question is, if we are going with having policies on premise, so I'm assuming you're talking about having policies in a local, running your gateway in the local mode. How can we put in governance on top of that without going to cloud? Will we have to set up something outside MuleSoft? Igor, would you like to take the first part of the question? So the question.
The first one is uh, well, just not the first one is we put the governance on top of that without going to the cloud. So you okay, when we say going to the cloud, I'm not sure how to understand that actually, but if you're first of all, API governance as such has no dependency or doesn't relate to your runtimes wherever they are. That's A, right? Wherever you're running your services, either Mule or non-Mule, doesn't impact the API governance. If we then say cloud in the context of Anypoint platform being on cloud, right? If that's a challenge, then obviously you can use Exchange as a repository of your rules, right? Or use default rules there. But you can do the validation then from your CD pipeline or CI/CD pipeline. As I said, there is Anypoint CLI support for that, so you can bake it into your automation processes, CI/CD processes, and trigger it from there. Obviously, you need to be mindful of losing certain capabilities, right? Because if it is on Exchange, everything is fully integrated. You have a UI, you have a report, you have automatically emails sent to API owners that they are not compliant. They can immediately see the details why they are not compliant and where they need to update the API spec to be compliant. All of these things you are losing straight away, and you are relying just on your pipeline to to do the job, right? So to provide some sort of reporting against the compliance, to contact the API owner about the fact that they are not compliant, to tell them why they are not compliant, right? All these things. Presumably CLI, frankly speaking, I haven't tried CLI, right? But CLI, again, will have some logs guiding you through. But would your API owner have access to these logs? I would say no, because you are in management or in ownership of that pipeline. So probably only you could be reading the logs. So you're kind of missing a point of the governance itself, because you want the owners, API owners, to understand why and where they are not compliant, right? So again, things to consider. Things to consider there. You have a flexibility, but think about the bigger picture. Think about the processes.
Right. Um, okay, we can also go to the audience who are here in the office. Okay.
My question is regarding the profiles that you showed for API governance. When in case a new API is added to Exchange, would the profile get automatically updated, or should we update the profile in that case manually?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. So I need to try that honestly, but I guess once you have applied a profile, once you applied the rule sets to a profile, the next step is applying a filter. So let's say in our demo, we applied a filter on all REST APIs. So when we added a filter of all REST APIs, so the next REST API that you create is also belonging to the same category. So that should by default apply, be visible in the same rule sets in API governance. But yes, we can check that out in the deep dive. I'll note this question down, and we can maybe showcase the same thing as well by adding a API after we build the quality, after we enforce the profile. Yep. Any further questions? I'm looking at both the on-site and the online audiences. Okay, so thank you. I'm going to pass on to Ganesh. So let's move on to the next round, which is our quiz and our feedback. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so so before we start the quiz, so let's go with a feedback round. You want to play this? Okay, so if you could please log into www.menti.com and use this code 3544962 and provide a few words about this meetup. How did you like this meetup, and what would you like to see more? Anything special about this meetup, and how do you feel encouraged about it? That would be, we'd really like to have your feedback. And then we move on to the quiz. Okay, amazing. API governance, flexible flex. That's a good one. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to wait for 40 seconds more, and then we move on. Support for more non-Mule APIs. Igor, someone has mentioned your name. Mine too. Awesome. Thanks everyone for your great feedback. So we will move on to the next part, which is the quiz, and then we move on to the networking time. So you can still keep adding your own adding your feedback. Okay. Go to menti.com. Sorry. Right. Thank you for your feedback, everyone. Okay, so now let's start off with the quiz. Present. Okay. So I would ask everyone to first go to the go to www.menti.com and use the code. And please, 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 everyone, use your actual names. And because if you win, we would need your names and your email address to forward you the MuleSoft vouchers. Okay, so please use your actual names. Otherwise, you lose the lose the yeah. So we have 25 attendees, and we have 18 here. 19 will yeah. Question 5. Oh, question 1 or 5. Okay, I think we can start now. Okay. So there is just there is no rules here. So the only rule is answer first, as fast as you can, because answering fast earns more points. Okay, and do not have a wrong answer. Right. So let's start with it. So the first question: what is the correct mode available in Flex Gateway, or what are the correct modes available in Flex Gateway? We have 25 responses already. 3, 2, 1, go. Time's up. Oh, okay. Most of them are right. Okay, so I'm not sure who Frosty is. So whoever Frosty is, I hope you have an actual names which you can provide if you win. Okay, so moving on to question number 2, and here it is. Which deployment model is possible with Flex Gateway? Okay, right. So we have, yeah, so it means that everyone was paying attention while I was presenting. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Right, so now we have, okay, Darshan, okay, Anand, Josie, and Dheeraj. Okay. Okay, question number 3. So you can still redeem yourself. There are 3 more questions. Which of the below state allows importing an API fragment into an API specification project? So in short, what stage your API fragment needs to be in so that it can be successfully imported into an API specification? Okay. Right. So it needs to be in a stable position to be imported into an API specification. So let's see who is leading right now. Okay. So 2 more questions. Moving on to the 4th. So which of the following is not a valid rule set available by default in API governance? So we just checked API governance. So if you are paying attention, this this could be an easy question. And the question is, which is not a valid rule set? Uh, yeah. Sorry, the answer. Sorry for this question. So the answer for this was client ID enforcement. Sorry for this. This is not a valid answer for this. Okay. Anyways, it remains the same. Yeah. Apologies from the org side. Okay. Okay. So the last question. So this is the defining question. Which of the following is not a security policy in MuleSoft API gateway? Which is not a security policy in a MuleSoft API gateway? Time's up. Sorry. So, okay. So the correct answer is client ID enforcement. Yeah. Again. Okay. So we have Marco as the top, as one of the winners. We have Tony and we have Volodymyr. So if you could please send your actual email address in the chat, useful. Okay. I'm just turning this off. Going back to the agenda again. Right. Thank you for participating in the quiz. So yeah, we are at the end of this meetup. So all of the content that I presented, along with the commands and everything else, we will add it to the presentation and we'll publish it to the event page. So hopefully by tomorrow, you should be able to see the recording and the slides. And if you want to contact us regarding any of these topics for universal API management, or if you want to present some topic specific to this, please let us know and we can make that happen. And finally, thanks everyone for joining, and hope you have a nice day. And I just hope you have shared the right email addresses, the winners. So I do not have the email address of Marco and Tony. Okay, so Tony is here, so I can get his email address. Tony is on site. Okay, so Marco. Okay, thanks Marco for sharing your email address. So, okay, thanks everyone for joining, and let's meet in one of our upcoming meetups, and we will have more content for you related to universal API management and integration in general. And because these meetups would also be hybrid, so feel free to jump in and meet us on site and share some good integration and life experiences. Thanks everyone.